in the way of the Wi-Fi.
What? There is Wi-Fi?
Yeah, but you're standing in the way, right?
No, it's not because of that.
Okay, coming through. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Bodhi Tree Buddhism Community for our classes on Karma and Insight. And we are up to week 4 now, so welcome along, everyone. Sorry we are a little bit delayed by about 30 seconds. Just hit the start button, hit the live stream button, and it just takes a few seconds for it to click through. But it's good to see that we've got people here. We've got Mark's already online saying good morning. Good to see you there, Mark. If anyone else, or everyone else who's out there listening and watching at the moment, it's great to see you. I see we've got Terry's joined us there. I'd like you all to just post a little comment in the comment section. It just helps me see who's out there. And for myself, at least, when we're doing these sessions, I like it because then I can see who's out there. Otherwise, I feel it's a bit one way, just kind of me talking and doing stuff. And I just want to know that we have a bit of sort of two-way communication and two-way contact back and forth. Okay, so this morning we're up to week number 4, and we're just continuing on as we have been. I think I've put in the link there for our text that we're looking at today. So we're continuing on with the next chapter in our series, and this chapter is called Making Adjustments in the English translation that we're using. And this chapter, I think, the last couple of weeks have been, well, the first week was sort of preliminaries, right? Different conditions, different things we need to set up in our lifestyle and these sort of external conditions. And then weeks 2 and 3, we dealt with some mental attitudes, renouncing that kind of craving for sensual desire, be it through any of the different sense organs, and also talking about the 5 hindrances or obstructions to meditation practice. So 555. And in this week, the name of the chapter, well, the content of the chapter is also 5 elements as well. And but we're going to try to expand it out and go into a bit more detail. So the 5 elements that we're going to look at the first 3 of them today. We're going to kind of bundle those all together. And then next week, we're going to look at the 4th one. And the week after, we're going to look at the 5th one. So we're going to kind of start to take the material and go into it a bit more detail. And hopefully that will help us sort of get into meditation proper. Just if you've been feeling up until this point, we're kind of talking around the topic and haven't really jumped straight into the topic. Okay, so for those of you out there who are listening or watching, I can see there's a little number of people that we've got there. Drop a message in the little message box there. Oh, I need to scroll down. I'm sorry, you have been leaving messages. I just haven't scrolled down. Okay, we've got Tina joining us as well. Hi, Tina, Nathaniel, good to see you all back, and Margot. Okay, so we've got a few regulars. Good to see you all. It's great you can join. I hope everything's going well with your connection and it's coming through pretty clear. Okay, so with that said and done, let us jump into our text, shall we? I hope you've all downloaded the text or got a copy there. I'm going to cut over and we're going to bring up the text so we can kind of read through it together, okay? Hopefully this will cut properly. Okay, so here we are, chapter 4. Now, just before I sort of start reading, I'd just like to quickly skim through and give you a feel for the basic structure of what we have in this chapter. So section 4, making adjustments, some preliminary considerations. And then we get into the first adjustment, which is adjustment in food. The second one is adjustment in sleep. Then we have 3, body, breath, and mind. Then it goes into the details of adjusting the body, regulating the body when entering meditation. And this provides a lot of detail, as you can see here, for the actual meditation posture. And we touched on it last week, but we're going to go over it again, talk about it in a bit more detail. So sitting, arranging the feet, the clothing, the hands, the posture, the head and neck sitting up straight. Okay. Now, the format that this text uses isn't quite the same as the 7-point posture that we talked about last week. So the actual meditation posture is the same. Okay, the meditation posture is still the 7-point posture, but just the structure of the text doesn't sort of say like, oh, that's 7-point posture and then point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so it's kind of a little bit, the structure is a little bit different, but the actual content's the same. Okay, that's just for your reference. And then after dealing with the body, then it gets into preparing the breath, so this is right, regulating and adjusting the breath, different types of breathing, and then some last final points on the posture again. And then we get into the 4th adjustment, which is adjusting the breath when entering meditation, different types of breathing, and then it gets into adjusting the mind, right? Different states of mind and so on. And as you can see, if you're looking at the side of that PDF file, it's got quite a few pages, so quite a lot of this material is adjusting the mind. So this is one of the reasons why I said we're going to talk about this in more detail rather than try to cover all 5 of these in one session. I think that would be just trying to cram in too much. And for those of you that have done, like, say, breath meditation before, you'll know that the content here, it's talking about adjusting the breath, isn't just sort of something like, oh, you just adjust the breath. It really is such a critical part of meditation. We need to talk about that in quite a bit of detail. And likewise for adjusting the mind. Because in a certain way, we could say once the mind is sort of adjusted and regulated, that is the meditation itself. So here we're getting to the point where it's not so much preliminaries or theory, but actually getting down to like, what are we doing? Okay, so let's head back here. Sorry, I'm just flipping. Oh, is the video connecting with you people? My video is having all sorts of problems here. I hope this is coming through for you here, because looking at the live stream, it looks like it's kind of cutting and breaking out every now and then. The video quality is not good. I'm not sure why, but I'm just going to keep on going through, okay? I think if I just sort of stop everything to try to deal with this now, it's not going to help much. Okay, I just hope that the connection here holds together. Okay, so let's get back to our text. Okay, so making adjustments. Now, the term here in Chinese is tiao wu shi. So the term tiao here gets translated as adjustments. You could also look at it as regulating. So it's a sense that you've got all these different things. You've got, like, say, your sleep and your food. We need to regulate our sleep. We need to make sure that it's adjusted just right. We can also think here of ideas such as the middle way of Buddhism, kind of not going to extremes, likewise with food and so forth. So adjustments or regulation are the terms I kind of like to think of it as. Okay. Now, if we just scroll to the bottom of that first one here, so what is meant by making adjustments? Now, to draw upon familiar objects as analogies for this Dharma, it is just as when a common potter wishes to create various sorts of vessels, so, right? You take the clay, you put it on the pottery wheel, you spin it, you make some different vessels, bowls, plates, whatever. You must skillfully make adjustments to the clay such that it's neither too stiff, nor too soft. Right? So if the clay is too dry, for example, it's going to get brittle. When he turns it, it's going to crack, it's going to fall apart into lumps. Or if that clay is too soft, it's not going to hold its shape. It's just kind of like sag and go soggy. So again, the way this is described, we can see that Buddhist notion of the middle way. And we need to adjust this just right and not go to two extremes. And that's something I think is important for beginners. Sometimes when we get into something new, we think, this new thing is good, I'm really interested in it. We just have to be careful that we make that nice balance between not putting enough effort into it and not getting any results, or going a bit too like hardcore, a bit too like crazy mode, and maybe actually knocking things out of balance. The key is not just kind of like these short bursts of extreme effort, but a continued, sustained but even effort. And he gives another example as well, like playing the lute. And you probably have also heard of this metaphor as well. This is another really well-known metaphor. So usually comes from the story of when the Buddha, before he was the Buddha, and he was practicing asceticism in the forests, and it's really hardcore asceticism. So he's, doing fasting and barely eating at all, and so on and so forth. And his body's kind of wasting away. And he thinks like, so he's kind of like exhausted and thinking it's not working. He sits by the side of the river, and by the side of the river he sees two people. So one of them is a young man and one of them is an older one. And the young one is learning to play the lute. And so the teacher is explaining like, how to adjust the strings on the lute. So if the strings are too tight, then the sound comes out strained, and there's the danger that the string's going to break. But at the same time, if the string's too loose, it doesn't have enough tension to produce any sound, right? And so then the bodhisattva hears this and he says, that is similar to my own practice. In the palace life, that kind of luxury is too loose, right? But then when he's practicing asceticism, it's too tight, and he's going to break himself, right? He's going to snap that string. So he needs to find a balance between these. Okay. Now, if we look into the first one here, making adjustments for food, I'll just read this first little paragraph. First, making adjustments with respect to food. Now, as for food's function as a dharma, basically it is consumed out of a desire to supply the body so that one may advance along the path. If one eats to the point of becoming too full, then the breathing will be strained and the body will feel stuffed, the energetic channels will not flow freely, the mental faculties will be blocked up, and when sitting, one's thoughts will not be tranquil. So if you can think about this, one of the best examples of this is if you're doing like a meditation retreat, be it 1 day or 3 days or a 7-day retreat. And then the sessions after meals, so often after lunch, have a big lunch, come back to meditation or try to meditate, and your stomach's really full. What happens? When the stomach's full, it will first of all just even change your ability to sit, right? Your ability to adjust your spine and your posture, and that will in turn change your breathing, your chest and so forth. Your posture is altered. And another one, of course, is that the food, with all, when you start to digest, your blood goes into your digestive system, so that also takes it away, say, from your head and state of mind. And also then with this big hit of all this digested foods, and particularly like those carbs, those sugars, going into your bloodstream, it changes your state of mind. So, it's really common for big full tummy, you get this kind of real sleepy dullness. So that's the case of eating too much, right? It's not good. It's not a middle way. The other example, the other situation, if we look at the next paragraph, if one eats too little, the body will waste away. The mind will be too tightly strung and mental deliberation will be unstable. Neither of these two situations is the way to the realization of meditative absorption. So here we've got the example or the situation where we're not eating enough. And you know, if we're not getting enough sustenance in the body, again, that will also change the state of mind. It's like if you don't get enough food, you know, what is one of the first things? You get angry, you get grumpy, right? Changes our emotions. Blood sugar levels change our emotions, changes our mental states. You really get low levels, you know, particularly I think when your sort of your vitamins and minerals start to get low, it changes our ability to think clearly. So that's kind of the other extreme. Now, it is worth pointing out with regard to this that if one is on a longer term meditation practice, say probably something more than a day at least, maybe a 3-day retreat or a 7-day retreat, because you're really deeply changing your state of mind, the mind's becoming much calmer, and the relaxation it brings about in the body, your food requirements will change. Your food requirements will change. That will come about in terms of how much you want to eat. You might actually feel you need less food simply because you're not burning off all this nervous energy in your brain and your thinking. But also because I think but the other side is not just how much, but it's also the kinds of foods you need. You might feel that you want to eat different types of food as well. So there are these changes, but those are things that happen naturally, and you'll just have it like a change. It's not something that you force upon yourself. It's just that you will naturally think, like, you just don't need as much. But the key thing is to still keep that clarity of mind in order to be able to do your practice properly. Okay, so that's kind of the key point there. Okay, now there is one other point that I think is worth mentioning that's not kind of talked about in the text here. If you're doing a lot of sitting meditation, again in a longer retreat, make sure you get enough fiber. Make sure you get enough fiber. If you're doing a lot of sitting, and also when you start to generate a lot of that heat energy in the body, when your chi, your prana starts to generate, it will, for a lot of people, bring about constipation. So you need to make sure you're getting enough fiber. And of course, you need to alternate your sitting with like walking meditation or some other kind of movement as well. The text also talks about, say, eating contaminated food. So this is food that's not good for you, not healthy for you. And in my mind, one of the biggest things here to watch out for, one of the biggest pointers, recommendations, shall we say, is a vegetarian diet. Now, a bit of history. At the time of this text in China, the monastic community wasn't under a kind of universal vegetarian rule. A lot of monastics were, particularly nuns. Kind of there were more nuns who were vegetarian than monks. Interesting point. But the kind of food that we do eat will also have an effect upon our bodies. And so one of the things and the qualities of meats is now I'm no dietitian, I'm no expert in this, but kind of the idea that, say, things like meat or also alcohol can have a similar effect. It changes the acidity of the blood, the acidity of the body, and that will also have an effect upon one's state of mind. So I'd recommend vegetarian diet, but also make sure it's a healthy vegetarian diet. It's not enough to just say you don't eat meat, and that equals being healthy. You need to have a proper balanced diet as well. Okay, and avoid what I'm calling it contaminated food. If we're going to think about this, I sometimes like to think about this in actual like Ayurvedic kind of ideas. So it's another broader Indian tradition with regard to food. So the sattvic diet rather than the rajasic or the tamasic. The tamasic includes meat, but also includes food that's like stale, it's not fresh. Rajasic food is overly stimulating, so don't drink too much coffee, don't have too much chili, these kinds of stimulating things, but rather have the first type, which is sattvic, which is kind of wholesome, fresh, fruit, vegetable, kind of low sugar, low salt, these kinds of things, okay, as a healthy diet, non-contaminated food. Okay. The second adjustment referred to in the text is adjustment in sleep. So the second involves adjustments in sleep. Now sleep is a matter of being covered over by a state of ignorance and delusion. So what it means, a matter of means it's a state of. So the state of sleep is the mind is not aware, right? It doesn't have that aware clarity, is what is meant here by a state of ignorance and delusion. So one must not give free rein to it. If you remember back last week when we were talking about the hindrances, the four hindrances, and the fourth one is sleepiness and dullness, right? So that's a state where we're not clear. Now, sleepiness and dullness is you're still awake, but you're not clear, you're kind of dull, sleepy. Here they're talking about just sleep per se. So when we're meditating, we can't like overindulge in that state. If one sleeps too much, one not only wastes the opportunity to cultivate the Dharma of the Aryas, the holy practitioners, but one also destroys any meditative skill. Okay. Now, the short kind of response that I would think of here is, yeah, we need to make sure that we have enough sleep, but not too much. So again, there's kind of like a middle way. If we think like, oh, I'm a hardcore meditator, I don't need to sleep at all, you're really going to stress your mind and your body out. It's necessary for us regular people to sleep. But if we sleep too much, that kind of overindulgence in sleep can lead to a very dull and hazy kind of a state of mind. And that's also not good either. Okay, I've just noticed that I'm having some issues here with the live stream. Even what I'm saying right now is probably not coming through and not being recorded. But I'm just going to try to go back and fix it here. Seems to be having a few internet issues today, so my apologies for that. Let's see if we can get this back on track. Okay, hopefully we'll be getting it coming through again in a minute. Okay, hopefully it'll be coming back through. So my apologies about this. I'm not quite sure the reason why, because last few weeks we've been managing to do it without too much of a problem. Not sure. If I check the stream health in the little Facebook settings there, it seems to be kind of okay, and then every now and then it will just die. Okay. Okay, everyone. I'm really not too sure what's going on here. Yeah, something's not too good in the system, but hopefully that should be reconnecting with you now any minute. Okay, I'm just going to continue on, I think. Hopefully that should kick back in. Okay. So yeah, if we sleep too much, it can kind of lead to that kind of really dull and dreamy state of mind. You might have had that experience yourself. If you like sleep too long, when your body kind of doesn't necessarily need it, what happens is you don't feel more and more refreshed. You actually feel really like dull and sleepy, and that's not a good kind of result at all. Something you want to avoid. Now, there are a number of different teachings in the different scriptures, and there's some of them kind of mentioned here with the idea of like sleeping too much, and as it relates to kind of the sense of urgency in our practice. So constantly the Buddha is going, make effort, put in effort. You don't have time to waste in overindulgence in sleeping. However, once our practice starts to mature and we start to develop stronger meditation, our actual need and requirements for sleep will be reduced. Okay, our requirements for sleep will themselves be reduced. Okay. Now we're still having these video problems. As I said, I really do not know why. Yeah. Now it's not dying out at the moment, but it seems to be on this incredibly low level. My Wi-Fi stream is looks still fairly strong, so I'm not honestly sure what the problem is. Maybe it's going to start to pick up now, but it's obviously having difficulties connecting through. Now, one of the reasons why I'm just continuing to talk and not stop at all is because I am, well, many of you out there listening to the live stream, but I'm also recording this as a file, so I can upload it later. So the uploaded one later should be okay. It should be kind of complete, even if the live stream doesn't quite work well or work properly. Okay, where are we? Back to our text. So the next point, and the last one that we're going to spend a bit more focus on today, is the adjustments to the physical body. So if we just look at this little section here in our text, now as for the physical adjustments undertaken when one first desires to enter dhyana, there are issues of appropriateness in the physical adjustments undertaken by the cultivator wishing to enter samadhi. For instance, when one is abiding outside of meditative absorption, so when you're not meditating per se, whether walking, standing, commencing activity or stopping one, whether moving or still, it is essential to be meticulously attentive to all such situations. So this is what is often referred to as mindfulness of the body. Mindfulness of the body, whereby we're paying attention at all times to the state of the body and what kind of situation we're in. So, you know, even if we're doing something like we're reaching out to grab a cup, as we're drinking, we're being mindfully aware of that. So we're kind of mindfully aware in the present moment of the physical actions rather than doing the action, but our mind is off wandering somewhere else. Okay, so this is just kind of a general principle. However, we need to really kind of look at the specifics, and we're going to try to then focus on the meditation, the sitting meditation itself. It talks a little bit here about connecting the body also in with the breath, but we can get into that a bit later. Okay, now the next section is just sitting meditation itself. So later when one enters into dhyana, it's essential to be skillful in stabilizing the body properly. When one first arrives at the sitting cushion, one must first establish oneself in the sitting location in such a manner that all is peaceful and secure, so that nothing will interfere with remaining for a long time. So this idea of remaining just means you're able to sit nice and still, nice and calm, without any physical disturbances for a good long length of time. That's the kind of basic idea here. So now we could kind of go through and talk about, you know, kind of read through the text here. Well, maybe we should. Let's just do this very briefly, but then pull out. We're going to switch cameras, and then we'll pull out and we'll actually show what the sitting posture is. Okay, so I think maybe we'll quickly go through this, then we'll change cameras, we'll do some stretches like we've usually been doing, and then come back and focus in just on the sitting posture, and again we can go over that in a bit more detail. So it first talks about, just I need to make sure that we're on the right section. Yep. So first talking about arranging the feet correctly, so the half lotus, for example, or the full lotus, so the half lotus with one leg up on the alternate thigh, or the full lotus with both feet up on top, making sure that one's clothes and so forth are not too tight. It's kind of a bit fun, you know, loosen the belt, but make sure it doesn't fall open while you're sitting. Kind of interesting kind of picture in mind. But you've got to imagine these monks in the 6th century, so the kind of robes are a bit different to what we wear these days. Position of the hands, so sitting in the meditation seal, and then consolidating the rest of the posture. So it's kind of making some movements of the body to kind of settle down and adjust yourself into it, keeping the spine and the head and neck up nice and straight, and then lining those up so we're not twisted or turned or leaning either side or forward or back. Then taking a couple of deep breaths. And I think this is good. You need to kind of, once you've got that posture, you need to take a couple of breaths because you've got to make sure that that posture works well for a nice deep fluid breath. It's really critical. So when you then actually start to breathe, you find, oh, I need to make some smaller adjustments again. And then the final details of around the mouth and lips and the eyes in order to get that posture right. Okay, so these are kind of the basics. The next section then gets into like adjusting the breath, so we can deal with that in a second. Okay, so we're coming back here now. Now, as far as I can see, the live stream, yeah, it just doesn't seem to be coming through, and I'm not sure why. Hopefully, we'll get this recorded file up soon. So my apologies for that. I'm going to have to try to work out what is wrong with the streaming here and why the quality is so low that it's unable to put through a proper stream to go live. Maybe it's just not showing up on mine. I'm not sure. Okay, so I think time for us maybe to change cameras, and we'll go do some like standing stretches like we do normally, and we'll calm down and sit, and we'll go over the posture again. Okay, so let's just go here. I should be able to cut over to my other camera. I need to pull this camera down and get it out the way. Otherwise it's sticking in the top there. Okay, hopefully that's okay. Okay, so time for some stretches, everyone. Okay. So now, as I mentioned before, my space here isn't kind of ideal, but it's not too bad. It's mainly because the ceiling's a bit low here. Okay, so find yourself some space, stand up. You've been sitting for a few minutes, so you might want to just make sure that your legs are okay. Give it a little bit of a shake. Make sure that you don't have any numbness or stiffness. Okay, and let's just go through our regular kind of basic stretching routine. So we're going to start from the feet as usual. So with the right foot and ball of the foot on the ground, rolling at the ankle, putting our focus into the ankle, putting our focus into the ankle, feeling that movement. Okay, back the other way. And then change to the left foot, again rolling at the ankle, putting our focus into the ankle. Feeling those movements there. Okay, and back the other way. Okay. Then we're going to move up to the knees. So we can just kind of come forward a little bit, hands on the knees. We can squat down. Focus on the knees, coming back up, stretching back and stretching the backs of the legs. And squatting down. Oop, careful. You probably hear those popping sounds of my knees. Back again. Down. Back. Again, you're going to make little circles, just very small rotation circles. Again, our focus is on the knees. Just make sure we're feeling the movements, don't want to strain it. Getting them warmed up. Okay, I've had quite a bit of exercise in the last couple of days. So my legs need a bit of a stretch. That feels very nice for them. Okay, coming up. Okay, now we're going to go from, we've gone ankles, knees, and we're going to come up to the hips. So normally, of course, your hips and your waist kind of usually get stretched together. It's a bit, ideally you'd want to do like your hip from your thigh up into your pelvis, and then kind of up into your waist as two separate areas because they are distinct, but usually we can kind of work them together. So feet slightly apart, and we're just going to rotate at the hips and do circles at the hips. And again, putting the focus into that area, feeling the stretch at every point as you go around. And back the other way. Okay. Okay, now there's a number of other stretches you can do for the hips, and because the last few weeks I've just done some very, very simple, very short exercises. But today, since our focus is on adjusting the body, let's maybe do a couple more than we have previously. So another one I like to do, also kind of, it does the knee, the thigh, and also the hip. So just basically pull up your right foot behind and you pull the heel up into your buttocks, and it'll stretch the top of the thigh here, and it will also, of course, open up the knee. If you have difficulties holding your balance, just fix your eyes, your focus on a single spot. If you look around and you move your point of vision, it will be more likely that you will kind of lose your balance. Down, and then bring it around to the front, okay? And then you can pull your knee up into your chest as much as possible, and that will stretch down here in your buttocks and also at the hip. Down you go. Left leg from behind, stretching the thigh, top of the thigh, and opening up the knee. And then around to the front, up to your chest. Yeah, we'll do it again, one more time, each side. So opening up the thigh, and up to the front. Down, left leg, just other leg, opening up the thigh, the knee. Yeah, now I know all these stretches aren't mentioned like in the text, and this is a point, maybe I'll just say a few words about this while I'm doing this. I find that a lot of classical texts, well, almost no classical texts talk about sort of the idea of exercise. They'll often give quite a heavy emphasis on sitting meditation, and you will get instruction for other forms of meditation, walking meditation, for example. But you don't get this kind of idea that like meditators should exercise. And I think sometimes in a kind of a modern context, in some traditions of Buddhism, then that, this kind of, you don't need to exercise, you just do this meditation. But I think we've got to keep in mind that our modern lifestyles and the lifestyles of these, particularly monks and nuns in ancient times, are really very different. I mean, at the time of the Buddha, monks and nuns every morning are walking from the monasteries, like out in the, the forest, or right up there, past the edges of the village, walking all the way into town to beg for food, walking through town, turning around and going and walking all the way back. And this struck me on a pilgrimage one year to India, in the heart of India, in the location which is basically Rajagriha and Agruddhakuta. So Rajagriha was the capital of Magadha, a very large city in ancient times of the Buddha. Agruddhakuta was a vulture head peak, or eagle head peak, sometimes gets translated as, is a mountain outside of that. And the stories would say that the monastics lived up on this mountain and they would walk down to the city. It's not a very big city by modern standards, it's like a town, every morning and walk back up. That would have been quite a bit of exercise for them, which is probably far more than most modern meditators would have.
So I think it's important to kind of keep in mind that while classical texts might not emphasize sort of this idea of exercise, we as modern people probably still need it just simply because our lifestyles are different. Okay, ankles, knees, hips. We're going to do just a couple more stretching like in the upper body and the spine, but we'll also hit the legs as well as we've done earlier. So first, hands in front of your chest, and inhaling, stretching up, and open up your chest, straighten your back, breathing in, and then exhaling down, keeping your legs straight, exhaling down, and hands down to the floor if you can, breathing all the way out, and inhaling up, exhaling down, inhaling up, opening the chest, exhaling down. We can do this quite a few times. Inhaling up. Let's just relax. Now another point about this particular exercise is on one side it's a physical stretch, yeah? But because we're coordinating it with our breath, we're also then seeing that transition between adjusting the breath and adjusting the body and adjusting the breath, because these two are related, right? And the basic principle here is stretches that work the upper body. When those exercises and those stretches come up or back, so opening up the chest, we're inhaling. When they go forward or down, so then we're contracting the chest, bringing the body forward, then we're exhaling. Okay, so that's kind of the basic principle. We can maybe do like one more, we're just with the hands on the hips, we go right hand up, stretching over. Now I've got a very low ceiling here. Exhaling down and stretching the right side of the body, and then inhaling up, changing hands and over to the other side, exhaling down, inhaling up, change hands, and over we go, exhaling out as we go down. Inhaling up, and exhaling down. Inhaling up. This last set. Inhaling up, and down, out we go, breathing out. And back up. Okay, so this is another example of, on one side we're practicing mindfulness of the body. We are doing a movement and we are putting a mental focus into the body. We're helping to stretch the muscles and thus relax the muscles. But here again, because we're working around the chest and the upper body, and we're coordinating it with our breath, we're actually then also being mindful of the breath and adjusting and regulating our breath at the same time. And from my experience in teaching meditation classes, I've had a lot of classes with people that have already had quite a bit of meditation practice and experience. But many of them have said when we do these types of stretches before we then sit for meditation, it helps considerably. It lets the body relax more, sit more comfortably so they can sit for longer before they have any physical discomfort and want to end the session. But also with the stretches with the breath, it means that their breath, even when they just first sit down, is nice and fluid, nice and deep and relaxed. And that helps to calm the mind, bring about focus, right? So this also relates to kind of the idea of, meditation, strictly speaking, is a mental state. But that doesn't mean we can then ignore the body. Buddhism isn't a kind of a mind-body dualism. These things relate to each other. So we can't just sort of then overlook the body. Okay, that's a few stretches like that. Let's maybe just do one more set for around the neck and head. So you're stretching up, pointing your chin up, Stretching on your throat and the top of your chest. And stretching down, breathing out, stretching the back of your neck. Up, breathing in. And down, breathing out. Up, breathing in. And down, breathing out. Back to the center. Just wondering, like those of you that are watching this stream, how many of you are just sitting there watching me, and how many of you are actually doing these stretches? I don't know. Probably some of you just like, just watching like, okay, yeah, that looks good. I should probably be doing that. Okay. Or if you need to use earphones to listen, of course, it's a bit difficult to do these with earphones on. One more set, left and right for the neck. Outside. And try not to hunch your shoulders when you do this. So you want your shoulders nice and relaxed, but we're just stretching the neck. Change. Change. Last one. Okay. And then just relax it all. Shake your arms, shake your legs. Let your whole body be loosey-goosey, nice and relaxed. Okay, now hopefully it's taken the stress out. Those of you that are maybe tuning in from the Americas and it's Friday night and you've had a busy week, I hope this helps you relax and chill out. Though just be careful later on you don't fall asleep when we are doing the next session. Okay, I'm going to flip over. I'm going to change cameras back here. I'm just going to pull this old camera up. And then I'm going to flip into, oh, I'm sorry. That should be down here. My apologies. So I just need to make a little tiny adjustment like that. Okay, now we're going to head into some meditation. I hope this is a good angle. Yeah, it looks not too bad at all. Okay, so we're now going to then talk again about our sitting posture. Go through our 7-point posture again, and then we're just going to have a short sitting session. Okay, so do you remember those 7 points that we talked about from last week? Okay. First one is the position of the legs. So we had from, for example, in Chinese, the Sanpan, so the easy posture, where one foot is drawn in close here, and another one's in front of it. Okay, I'm just going to make a tiny little adjustment. Just like tilt that camera down. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay. So one's kind of in close. You can see this foot's in close, and then the other foot's in front of it. Okay. Now, this is a really underrated posture, seriously underrated. A lot of meditators want to look all badass and have, I'm going to meditate full lotus. Yeah, sure, it's good. But don't underestimate this, just for sheer comfort. In Sanskrit, this is called Sukhasana, literally the easy or the happy posture, the comfortable posture, right? There's a reason you can sit in meditation for a long time like this. Okay, so this is a really good one. Second one, also very good, is the half lotus. So this foot here is still like nice and close. It's still nice and close, but the other foot then comes up and sits on the opposite thigh. Okay, the opposite thigh. Now, again, as I said earlier, for myself, I mean, yeah, I'm fairly flexible down this kind of hip area, mainly from doing martial arts from quite a young age. So I can, when I sit like this, my heel is literally right in the center. My ankle is right in the center. Most people are not so much like that. They tend to be more like this, and it crosses over. That's fine, but often what then happens is this knee is a bit high, and that might be uncomfortable. You might feel that, like, if you're not flexible enough for it to go down, but it's sitting up, you might feel a bit unbalanced. Practice, okay? But the main thing is try to bring them nice into the center, okay? Okay. I think I'm just going to try to make a little tiny adjustment to the camera there. I'm try to pull the angle down a bit. Like that, maybe. Okay. That way you should be able to see that posture better. Okay. Okay. So if that's tucked in there and this is on here, okay. So this is your half lotus and you can go either way. Having some technical difficulties again. Okay, my apologies. Okay, or you can go for the full lotus, whereby one foot is up on one side and the other foot is up on the other side, like that. Okay. So again, this is really kind of the professional level. And the advantage of this is that it means with both feet up on top, your knees will definitely go down and be low. Now you've probably already noticed I've got a little cushion underneath me at the back, which helps to then raise up the hips. And by raising the hips and having the knees down low, it means that the position of my lower back will sit up straight. Okay, it will make the hips sit up straight more. If you're not, and your feet are down, and your hips are high, and your knees are high, then the hips slouch down like that, and it's hard to sit up straight, right? Sometimes you get the situation, people want to meditate, and they think, oh, well, I need to sit kind of neat, has to be cross-legged. Meditation's got to be cross-legged. You end up sitting like this and hunching over. It's not just uncomfortable for the back, it's constricting your breath, makes the breath shallow and short. Because it's shallow, it has to be short, you have to breathe more times. This then changes your carbon dioxide levels in your blood, reduces your oxygen levels in your blood, changes your mental state, makes you anxious, and people come away feeling, oh, that's meditation, that was not pleasant, that was not fun at all. They would be better, probably, rather than sitting like this, than to go sit on a chair, put your feet down, and have your body up straight with your chest open so you can breathe properly. So this kind of overemphasis on your position of your legs misses the point, right? Misses the point. Okay, enough ranting for me. I'm just going to go back to my half lotus. It's my comfy posture, okay? So this is just point number one. So there, your legs. Second point is your hips and your back. So you can kind of feel like your lower back up straight. You can have something behind you to lean on if you've got like back issues, but you don't want to sit and lean on it immediately. Like have it as a backup. So you're off the wall or you're off the back of your seat. And if you get really tired and you need to lean on it later on for a little break and then sit back up again, you can do so. But don't get in the habit of meditating by leaning against something because your back, your spine will sag out. Okay. Roll those hips forward, back up straight. Third point is position of the hands. Now your classic posture is this kind of meditation mudra. So one at the bottom, the other one on top. The tips of the thumbs touching one another and sitting here. Now some traditions have this where it's definitely like resting against your abdomen here, which is very good. Now, but if I do this, I want to sit it. So it's like you're sitting on my heel there. Some traditions have it where it's lifted up. In my own experience, so I feel if you're lifting it up, you're actually bringing about a subtle, like there's a subtle bit of tension in my shoulders and arms here. To hold it up, I have to hold it in position. And that's going to then mean I can't entirely relax. If I sit it here though, I can just really relax those shoulders all together. So this is one good posture here for the hands. Another one is simply like a loose fist, right hand just covers that fist and sits there like that. That's also very good. There's a few different versions of this. I'd encourage ones that have both hands together in the middle. You can also have like hands both into a loose fist just kind of sitting here on your lap. You can have them out. You can put them on your knees or palms down, palms open. Some people like to kind of look fancy and look like they are doing some fancy, look, I'm on the cover of a yoga magazine.
but they have no idea why they're doing this. Okay, these do have significance. There are different points and pressure points through the fingers and hands, and by contacting these different points, you do bring about different results. But it's not just, you've got to know what you're doing to do that. And another thing is the energies in the body. The core points are, of course, from here, your dantian, up through your solar plexus and your heart center, up through your different energy channels in the body, and then they extend out through the hands and the feet. Now, when we sit like this, one advantage of having the legs crossed is it brings those energies in and stops them going out and scattering and being let loose outwards. And it's the same for your hands. When you bring your hands together like this, it brings and concentrates and centers the energies and keeps them low, stable, calm, focused, connected. If we are like this, for example, they are open, those energies are going out, they're not focusing. It's the same reason why you don't meditate like this. And not to mention it will affect your breath, right? So ideally like this. Now, I'm just mentioning those points and those energy points in your body. So this one here, I'm touching the tips of your thumbs. So the thumb in general is representative of the whole spine. The top is the head, the top joint is the head, the middle joint is the neck, the long joint down to your wrist is your spine. The very top tip of your thumb corresponds to those energy centers in the middle of your head. So for example, your pituitary. And by touching those, we are then increasing or bringing about further energy concentration in those points, right? So that can help us. It's just something worth keeping in mind. Okay, hands is the third point. Fourth point is the chest, open and full. Now we've done stretches to open the chest, remember, sideways and forward and back. Make sure your shoulders are open, you're not hunched and slouched, but sitting upright, chest open and full, shoulders relaxed. The fifth point, your head and neck up straight, right? So not leaning to the side or twisted to the side. Your jaw is like drawn back. You don't want to tilt your head back. If you tilt the head back, it brings about extra stimulation base of the skull, increasing the amount of like distracted thoughts that we have, increasing like that hindrance of agitation and excitement. If the head is lowered and dropped, that will bring about sleepiness and drowsiness. So again, this is another example of if we're sleepy and drowsy, our head will drop. But if we drop our head, it will bring about sleepiness and drowsiness. These two like mutually affect one another. So by keeping the head in the right posture, we can also help to maintain that kind of state where it's neither too agitated and excited nor too sleepy and dull. The mouth is closed. We always breathe through the nose, not through the mouth. And the tip of the tongue is just up on the top palate, just behind the top front teeth there. It should be a natural position. Now, just talking about breathing through the nose, not through the mouth, there are many traditions that might have something like at the very start of a session, breathing in through the nostrils and out through the mouth. There are also many other different techniques that will have things like alternate breathing, so breathing in through one nostril and then out through the other nostril, and then so in through the right, out through the left, in through the left, out through the right, and alternating. Now this is because if we're breathing through the nose. Okay, we've got two nostrils. Now, something that some people know, not everyone knows, is we don't always actually have both of these nostril channels open. The body will naturally cycle between having one open and the other kind of closed. And then that will open and they'll both be open for a little while, and then the other one closes, and then they both open, and then like that. So they alternate. You can check this out for yourself. Now, when both of them are, now these are usually considered to be related to then the different energy channels in the body. But when both of them are open,
you'll find your focus and your meditation is much sharper and much clearer. So sometimes these techniques are used to then try to forcibly open both of those nostril channels and thus both of these energy channels in the body. Okay, so breathing through the nose, some teachings will have some, particularly breathing out through the mouth at the start of a session. The seventh and last point is the eyes. Now here, usually there's 2 points of view. One is that the eyes are slightly open, but if we do so, we might want to make sure that we're not being distracted by visual things. So that means usually we lower the gaze about like 45 degrees in front of us. So in my case, I can see there's like this tatami, and this is good. It's there, I'm looking at it, but it's not going to make my mind start to think about the tatami. Okay, it just means my eyes are open, so I'm not going to get sleepy, but I'm not being distracted. But you have to be careful about doing this, and a big factor will be where you're meditating. If you're meditating, like if I actually were to do that now, I don't just see the tatami, of course. I see a computer and cameras and all my setup, and so my mind's going to be thinking about this because my eyes are open. It's what I see. That's going to detract from my concentration. So this is one reason why some traditions, such as the Soto Zen tradition, meditate facing the wall. If I turn, for example, here and I face this nice white wall, I can have my eyes open, so keep myself awake, but I'm not distracted. Many, many years ago, back when I was still in New Zealand, before I went to study at the Buddhist College, I spent a bit of time with the Soto Zen tradition group there, and yeah, meditating facing the wall, I found it was very good. So having eyes open is one possibility. It will be better if you are dull and sleepy. However, if you're not dull and sleepy and you're more likely to be distracted by visual things, then you can gently fully close the eyes. Okay, because then your danger is, because your eyes are closed, that you'll daydream and what have you, right? Your mind will wander off and go into a little fantasy land or like a little sleepy land. Okay, now just looking at our time now, enough talk. I hope you are sitting comfortably. Let's just do a short sitting session. So you're sitting down, or you might want to do a few things like any side to side once you've got your 7 points. I often turn and pop my back, but that's just me. And then once you're sitting, get your hands in place and do a couple of nice deep full breaths. Let me get this ready. So nice deep full breath in, and then breathing all the way out. Okay, if you've got glasses on or other things like that, or a watch, best to take them off. I'm going to leave them on because I need to keep a track of the time. You don't. So a couple of deep full breaths. And in this session, what we're going to do is we are just going to mentally go through our body from our feet and our legs. We're going to go through all these parts of the body, all these points of the meditation posture, and just make sure that 2 things. 1, our posture is correct. We are sitting correctly, we're upright and alert. But also, point 2 is we are relaxed. Okay, we're not in a correct posture, but very stiff, like, oh, I've got a perfect posture. We've got a perfect posture, and we are wonderfully relaxed and comfortable in that posture. Okay, so let's just start the session. I'll provide just a couple of little reminders as we go through for your benefit. So first, begin your attention down at your feet and legs. Make sure your position of your legs is correct. If there's any tension, muscles or joints or what have you, just let them nicely relax. I'm going to move your attention now up into your hips and waist. Make sure that your what I call your hips are rolled forward, which means your lower back is up straight. You're not slouching with your lower back. And check the position of your hands, whether you're using the meditation seal position with your hands, whichever position you're using. Make sure that your hands are comfortable, your arms are also nice and relaxed up to your shoulders. Point number 4, to your chest and shoulders. Make sure your chest is open and full. Your shoulders aren't hunched or slouched forward. And we're not sticking our chest out, like not pushing it out and being tense. Just making sure that we can breathe nice and deeply and fully. And as you first sit and you make those first few nice deep breaths, of course you may need to readjust the posture in order to allow that breath to be deep and full, but also of course natural and comfortable. So that's the 4th point. Fifth point is our head and neck up nice and straight. Head up straight, not twisted or leaning to the side. And that our head is not tilted forward, which may bring about dullness or sleepiness, nor is it tilted back, which may bring about excessive distracted thoughts. And then the 6th point, the mouth is closed. We are breathing through the nose, and the tip of the tongue is behind the top front teeth, just on the palate of the mouth. Now, sometimes when we meditate, we may have saliva. That's okay, just swallow that. And later on, if you start to develop some concentration, there's a phenomenon which may occur, which is you get like more saliva in the mouth. It tastes quite pleasant. Also, just swallow that. It will keep the mouth, the throat, and also the nasal passages nice and moist, which also will mean that our breathing will be more comfortable. It's also healthier. And the last point is our eyes. I've got my eyes fully closed, trying to not distract myself by looking at the equipment in front of me. You can choose, you may have your eyes fully closed if you can avoid dullness and sleepiness, or you can have your eyes slightly open with your gaze lowered if you find that's better to keep a kind of nice, clear awareness of the present.
Just going to sit in this posture, keep our body nice and upright, good, awake, alert posture, but it's also relaxed and comfortable. Just maintaining your 7-point meditation posture. So nice and straight, aware, clear, awake, but also the body is relaxed, it's not tense, it's quite comfortable. Of course, that comfort can be an aid to that awareness. Take a nice deep full breath in. Slowly exhale all the way out. Just going to rock the upper body gently left to right. So going from awareness of the body, in a passive state, back to awareness of the body in movement. Okay, forward and back. We can lean forward, stretch at the waist and hips, and also back. Okay, you can roll your shoulders, stretch your neck and head. Okay, stretch your arms if you like. I'm gonna do a brief warm down, massaging the palms of the hands, warming up the palms of the hands, covering the eyes, massaging around the eyes, forehead, temples, cheeks, down to the chin and jaw, back of the neck, top to bottom, onto the shoulders. And we can do the ears, tops to bottom, down to the earlobe, give them a nice good stretch, stimulation, squeeze those earlobes. As mentioned last time, squeezing the earlobes can be a good way of, and also massaging around the eyes, the pressure, vital points around the eyes, along the ear, also side of the nose, can also help to keep the mind clear, fresh, and awake. So if you're having drowsiness when you're meditating. Chest, top to bottom, sides, and then the lower back. You can unfold your legs, and then you can also massage the lower leg. Side. As mentioned last time, if you get dullness and numbness, lose sensation in your legs, be really careful about coming back into movement. Make sure your legs are feeling fully functional again before you get up off your seat. Okay, you don't want to be in a position whereby you try to stand up, but your legs aren't listening. You might fall over and hurt yourself. Okay, I'm just going to come forward a bit for our last session for the day, just a bit of Q&A time. I can just adjust my camera back up. Okay, all right, here we go. Hopefully that should be about right. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left today. And we can have maybe 10 plus minutes at the end here for a bit of Q&A time. Just before we even begin on this, I'd like to apologize with the breaks that happened there with the streaming. I'm really not too sure why. I'm doing it on Wi-Fi, which of course is probably not ideal, but the Wi-Fi itself is strong, so I'm not quite sure what the problem is. So my apologies for that, and for those of you that have stuck around, thank you very much. I'm glad you have stuck around. Okay, so if you've got any questions, please feel free to throw them out. We can have a bit of chat, a bit of sharing. They can be about the teachings that we've covered today. They can be about meditation in general, about Dharma in general, about life, the universe, anything. It's all good, okay? Okay, now there's a few comments that have popped up along the way. Mei Fang joined us earlier. Mika also joined us earlier. Good to see you, Mika. The moment for me, the stream is fine. That was 47 minutes ago. Okay. I'm really not sure how it was on your side. But thanks for the feedback. Like any kind of feedback that you provide like that is really quite helpful. A little quote there from Tim. Don't slunch. Master Osborne 2020. Okay, we're going to quote that. We're going to note that down. Slunching. slouching and, I don't even know, what is it? Slouching and crunching or something? Or is it some kind of meal between lunch and dinner? I'm not sure. Okay, anyway, any questions or anything you want to say, anything you want to share about or talk about? Please just throw it up there in the little chat box, and we can talk a little bit about the end of the session here. So I know there's a bit of a delay between me saying that and then like you getting it on your side. I'd just like to make a comment while I wait for any responses for anyone, about what's going on in the world. I feel very fortunate myself here in Taiwan, where we do have some kind of countermeasures in place, but really they're very mild, sort of like public buildings and public locations. They'll have temperature check, and you have to record your names just in case there's a case that's found. They can do tracing, but just something that's made it all a bit more personal for myself. So a friend of mine, Professor Stefano Zacchetti, who's a professor at Oxford, we have like a big overlap in the areas of our studies. He's also a Prajnaparamita specialist. He uses a lot of Chinese texts, does a lot of work with translation and this kind of thing. And I've met Stefano on many occasions and had a good fortune back in 2013. I was visiting Oxford for just a little short time, and he was one of my hosts there, and he was very gracious. He also helped me with other things I was writing and studying, and so Stefano unfortunately passed away. I think it was 2 days ago, and so for me it kind of makes it feel much more real. This isn't, it's not statistics. So many people die, so many people die. It's people that we know. So for those of you out there that you might also have people that that have contracted this, I'm sure everyone's affected by it in some way. We've got to keep on going. I told that to my students, saying that Taiwan, everything seems pretty good. So you might think, there's no problem, we don't need to worry about it. But so long as there are cases out there, that potential for it to flare up again and get really bad is always there. So we need to really unite and pull together in order to get rid of this thing. Okay, so comment from Tim there. Aside from the Wi-Fi hiccups, this was really great. Well, thank you very much, Tim. Where are you these days, Tim? Are you still here in Taiwan, or are you back in the Netherlands, or are you hidden in an undisclosed bunker somewhere writing your thesis? I don't know. Tell me, where are you, Tim? I should have contacted you anyway, but now that you're here, I'm just going to ask you directly. Okay. From the Kalyanamitta Meditation Center in the Philippines, thank you for today's session. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's good to see people coming along regularly. Just means that I can kind of feel that we can build from session to session, and not sort of have every single session. I feel like I'm going to have to being a course. I have to reiterate all the basics over and over again. Okay. Question from Marco: how to deal with disordered thinking during meditation? So I'm taking you meaning sort of like a lot of like distracted thoughts. So like a lot of you want to focus on one thing and then all these other thoughts come up. The short answer is you're not really dealing with the distracted thoughts. So if you imagine it like this, you've got the thing that you want to focus on here, and then you've got all these other distracted thoughts that are coming along. Don't think you need to deal with these. As soon as you deal with them, you're turning your attention away from your main focus onto these, and then, deal with them. No. You deal with them by not dealing with them. You deal with them by putting your mind on your point of focus. So if you're meditating on the breath, and that's going to be our main focus for the next few weeks, And you start thinking about what's for lunch, what did I do last week at work, who do I have to see this afternoon, blah, 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 what's on TV. You don't deal with those thoughts. You just deal with your breath. Just put your focus here. Now, what will happen, of course, it won't mean that like you just put it here and these things immediately vanish. It's not that simple. You will often get a situation whereby most of your focus is here, you've got quite sustained focus, and these are still around. But there's sort of this long process, and it's a real gradual process. At first, you might focus on your breath for a split second, and then the distracted thoughts, and then back to your breath, and then distracted thoughts. After a while, though, you get to a point, and sometimes those distracted thoughts are just like continuous. They're really going on and on and on. But you get to a point whereby you can kind of sustain that focus on your breath a little bit longer. And these will still come up, or they're kind of there in the background, but they're not as strong. You might lose this altogether, get caught up again. But as time goes on, your ability to have this sustained and powerful focus on your breath gets stronger and stronger. And you'll have times where this continues on uninterrupted and unbroken, and these don't come up at all. Or if they do come up, they come up very short, very weak. And if you keep on going, you get to a point whereby these don't even kind of like come up. You'll kind of feel that there's something there, but they won't break up and they won't kind of well up into conscious mind in the sense of being like an actual thought about something. It's just like this kind of little murmuring, right? Then you get to a point where even this gets really attenuated, it's not happening at all. You've got this really strong, consistent, ongoing focus on your breath, and you've entered samadhi, basically. Now, this is a slow process. When you sit for any given session, of course, sometimes you'll just really get into the focus and you'll be really quite sharp and a few distracted thoughts. Sometimes they're like those distractions are really strong and your focus thoughts are, are quite weak. But you can't really look at the practice and success in terms of like an individual session. Success in meditation comes from long-term practice. It's like anything. Like you want to learn the piano, it's not just like blink, 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 blink on the keyboard. To get some skill, you have to constant practice, right? Weekly practice, daily practice, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. And you will get to a certain point, you kind of, that kind of developing of that skill is fairly slow. So you might not notice the difference so much day to day or week to week, but you might get to a point whereby, in your practice and your skill, whereby you might find one day you go do a sitting meditation, you're really quite focused and calm, and then you realize, look, that day before your meditation, or the week before your meditation, there might have been a lot of things going on. There might have been a lot of stress, emotional things, and all these kinds of things. But when you sit down and you want to focus your mind just on point. It's just sharp and clear. And then after your meditation, wow, all that kind of emotional debris is really calmed down a lot. And that just comes from that build of skill. So a skilled meditator is someone that, like, under pressure they can still perform. And it's kind of like any kind of skill. When you're a beginner, you need to like prepare yourself really well, and then you can do it properly. But a real master can pull out a good performance under kind of any situation. So the trick is, how do you deal with disordered thinking? You don't deal with it, you just work on the thing that you're focusing on. Right? You work on the thing that you're focusing on. Put your attention and your focus on that, and that will deprive those disordered and distracted thoughts of their energy. But you've got to be consistent, right? You've got to just like constantly do it. Just repeat, repeat, repeat. Okay? You will get distracted. It's going to happen. Don't give up. Doesn't mean you're bad. Just notice it, bring it back, repeat, repeat, repeat. And as time goes on, that ability, they kind of, sometimes we hear this idea of like, and I'll think about these like grooves or tracks. So these habitual practices that we have, it's very easy to set our mind on something if we're habituated to it. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to habituate the mind to these wholesome states and these focused states. Every time we practice, we just make those grooves a little deeper, which makes it a little easier for us to be focused. Every time we're not practicing or focusing on something else, it just makes those other grooves, those other habits a little bit stronger and a little bit more likely that we'll be distracted in turn. Right? So kind of no easy answer, though in another way, like all these things that we're covering in this whole course are partly answers to that question. Do some stretches before you sit, that'll help. Make sure you prepare a nice proper area like we talked about in week 1. That will help. Like for example, you know, a quiet, distraction-free area, that'll help. Make sure that you're eating properly and healthy, making sure you're getting enough sleep. All these things are going to help for your practice. Okay, so thank you for your question there, Margaret. It's a nice broad question, but maybe it's a good way to kind of sum up the session. Okay, everyone, time's 10:32 or 10:31, depending on which clock I look at. So that's about it for today's session. Thank you all for joining us. Again, apologies for any little Wi-Fi hiccups, but in the end it looks like it's still come through. So come along and join us again. Okay, so response from Margaret, thanks for your great answer in today's session. See you next week. Tim, nice explanation. Consistency is a challenge. Yeah, and even developing like not just the habit of, so, you know, like the habit of breath meditation, but the habit of putting that meditation time into our daily kind of routine is also, you know, another important thing for it. Next week we're going to come back and we're going to be looking at adjusting the breath. Right, so we're going to be talking more about the breath, different ways of breathing, how to regulate the breath, and what kind of breathing we need in order to bring about this meditative state that we're looking at. So that's going to be our focus for next week. Until then, keep on eating, keep on sleeping, keep on breathing, keep on being good to each other, look after yourself, look after everyone else. Okay, oh, we've got a question here from Tina. How to balance between concentration and the feeling of letting go. When I'm concentrated, there's immediate tension. I'd say that maybe you're a little too concentrated. You can't grab that object too tight. It has to be. Sometimes there's an analogy of like it's like holding like a little birdie. So imagine you found, you know, a small bird, a little sparrow that had been injured, and you want to help this little sparrow, and it's cold. You don't want to leave it outside, so you're going to take this little birdie, you're going to pick it up, and you're going to take it home and nurture it. Now when you hold that little sparrow, right, if you just have your hand open and you don't hold it, it's going to fall off, it's going to fall on the ground and hurt itself. But you can't hold it too tight or you're going to hurt it, right? You have to make sure you've got it just right, not too tight, not too loose, so that it's secure, you're not going to lose it, but that you're not squeezing it and you're not hurting it, right? So that kind of problem that you're mentioning there, Tina, is not a common one. Not a lot of people have that one. I think that tends to be a problem that people get once they've definitely got some meditation experience, but kind of like, and you're really keen to meditate, and you might be like, yeah, you know, put a lot of effort in, and this is really important to you. But if you give it a little too much and a little too tense, it will bring up that kind of possible tension as well. So that kind of balance. Okay, we can talk a bit more about that next couple of weeks. As I said, we're going to talk about adjusting the breath and also adjusting the mind, and that is one of those factors in adjusting the mind. So we'll get into that a bit later. Okay, but thanks for your question. Okay, everyone, take care, and we'll see you all next week. Okay. Bye-bye.